Welcome to Later That Same Life, my weekly podcast. I'm Larry Fedoruk, week to week, telling stories, discussing issues, and sharing information, trying to say interesting things in an interesting way. If you like the podcast, share it with a friend. It's on most major platforms, or subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Season 2, Chapter 12, Your Local Private Library.
Your local private library. It's a name I made up, a term I have coined. Truth be, it's actually semi-private, and I have access to one. And I'm glad it exists. I'm glad there's still books. Hey, if COVID has taught us anything, it's that people still read books. Well, hold on, back up. It's that people have books. We have to assume they've read them. Watching television and being on Zoom meetings, I've never seen so many people just sitting in front of a bookcase packed with books. Everyone seems to have a bookcase filled with books. Wow, what a well-read society. How come we aren't smarter? I know that on Zoom and other video teleconferencing sites, you can sometimes pick a background that's digitally inserted behind you. But these people sitting in front of books and bookcases, that looks like the real deal. I guess if you were trying to pick a background for yourself and how you might appear to others, books and bookshelves are pretty good, as opposed to, say, a pile of laundry or dirty dishes. Just move that webcam over, so that I'm in front of the books. Look at me, watch me, and believe what I'm saying, because I have books. And that's also assuming that most people's books are a collection of texts and manuals, novels, biographies, et al. Books that a regular person wouldn't mind sharing with whomever is watching. The knock on using books as a background, and there is a knock. And there's a knock because with all of us on video teleconferencing these days, there's now rules and etiquette. We've all had to become cinematographers, lighting experts, and set designers. Here's what my camera shot looks like. That's why those digital backgrounds are used. It takes the worry out of it. At one point, I actually shopped online for those folding screen room dividers. Something I could just set up behind me when I'm on a webcam. Nice generic background. Anything decent started at $200. Screw that. I'll just set up some books. Anyway, the knock on books as a background is that you will be judged on what you read. Well, how will people see the titles way in the background? Yeah, because, people record these meetings and take screenshots, and they zoom in, isolate, and enlarge those titles to find out more about you. Yes, they do. Well, not everyone, but it's done. And that's fine if the most embarrassing thing on your bookshelf is a Nicholas Sparks novel. But say your personal library includes The Wit and Wisdom of Adolf Hitler, The Unabomber Sex Manual, Behind the Spotlight with Alvin and the Chipmunks. Yeah, well, if that's the case, maybe you shouldn't use books in the background. Go with the laundry pile. Books, books, books. So many people on screen have books. One reporter working from home had so many books that the anchor actually interrupted him to ask, "Boy, that's a lot of books. Have you actually read all of them?" He said he had. People who love books love their books. Buy them, read them, keep them, display them. See, world, this is what I do. Read books. I guess it's better than a wall of beer cans. Well, hold on. Now, even though I am one of those book people, I don't quite understand it. I keep all these books, but I'm not a reference library. I rarely reread a book. I'm not a book collector, even though I have this collection of books. Dutifully, they are saved. Why? Perhaps the entire purpose of this whole exercise was that so one day they would be seen behind me in a screenshot to make me appear smarter than I am. I do love books, and it's not just that I love reading. I love the books. I'm a tactile person. I love the weight of a book, the texture of the paper, also the smell, the sound of a turning page. When I set a book down, I use a bookmark that juts out and reminds me of how much I've accomplished so far. Wow, you've read just over half. And the rest of the story, those lives in that book, have already been lived. It's all there, sitting on the nightstand, and at my leisure, I will live them too. I don't care that trees had to die for this. I'm sure deep down on some vascular level, even the trees understand. Some of their ancestors had to die so that we could have toilet paper, but others died so that we could have Ernest Hemingway. The latter seems more noble, a farewell to branches. As far as the pure experience of reading a good story or helpful information and insights, I'm fine with digital. In some cases preferred. I can adjust the light, the font size, it's all good. The prediction was that all text would be this way, digitized on a screen. And maybe someday it will be. But books have hung around, and you might say books started to make a comeback. Actual physical books. Years ago, and for the first time in a long time, I got a library card. I assumed I was about the right demographic to start hanging around the library again. Seemed a better option than hanging around a table at Tim's bitching about the government. The library. At absolutely no cost, I had access to my local public library. Your public library. The original Napster. The free sharing of someone else's creative endeavors. The modern-day public library. Much more than just a homeless shelter. For many, access to a computer they might not otherwise be able to afford. For me, it was the books. Seemingly unlimited titles. I'm glad the public library exists. It's your neighborhood house of knowledge, and it should be free. Personally, I would hefty up the late fines, but I'll nuance the library system when I'm running the world. I was sad when libraries closed during the pandemic. I understood why that had to happen, but suddenly we were cut off from a major source of knowledge. No good. Lack of knowledge is a bigger disease than COVID and must be eradicated in our lifetime. I joined the library, but I also bought books. One of my favorite things to do is to browse around a secondhand bookstore. Not too many of those left. Then there's the big chains, like Barnes & Noble. In Canada, Indigo. That is like a large, updated public library, except for the rich. It's not free, and you can also buy scented candles and picture frames. And oh look, they have a Starbucks. Well, it's really one-stop shopping. There is the business of books. Books need writers and editors and publishers, which requires an office and staff, which then begets booksellers and critics and bestseller lists and book tours and so forth. It's an industry, but a hallowed one. I think maybe because of the creative human effort required to write a book, put it together, and get it out there. Yeah, sure, there's pulp and pap and crap, but a book is a book. It deserves to live forever. One of the most disturbing things I can hear about, aside from human turmoil, is a book burning. book burnings, the destruction of documented knowledge, a step backward for the human race. I cannot, have not, and will not throw out a book. I think most people are like that. You can garbage just about anything you own, but books rarely go onto the trash heap or even a blue bin. I recently got rid of almost 400 books, just sitting there taking up space, collecting dust, never to be read again by me. I'm trying to purge stuff, and I thought those books should re-enter the world. I'd kept them around long enough. It took a few days. I held each book in my hand, let my brain scan the memory of it. Where did I get this? Was it a gift? If so, from whom and what occasion? When did I get it? What was the book about? Did I enjoy it? What parts do I remember? How did it change me? Based on those and other intangible factors, I made the decision: keep or pass on. As I said, 400 left my home office. About 100 remained. Within the 400, I made a few calls, sent a few emails.
Hey, do you want my Ruth Ware books?
Others got taken to the Secondhand store. The rest were donated to my local private library. This is part of a phenomenon I've noticed over the last few years, part of the comeback of books. The preservation and sharing of books in a non-profit way for the mere love of books and reading. The local private library, as I call it. And I'll explain more in a moment. Most of us, I'm sure, have heard about something that became known as the Little Free Library. Usually a structure about the size of a dollhouse, set up near the front of one's property, containing a selection of books, from the house, free to borrow, read, return, or not, or even contribute books of your own for other passers-by. The first ever Little Free Library is credited to Todd Bowl of Hudson, Wisconsin. He designed his to look like an old red schoolhouse. That was back in 2009. He wanted to encourage reading, sharing, and maybe even helping neighbor to meet neighbor. As word got out, Little Free Libraries began popping up in all sorts of urban, suburban, and even semi-rural settings. For the most part, people loved them, although in some cities, people complained. Go figure. They said the little libraries violated local building codes about secondary detached structures on private property. Oh yeah, some cities had to crack down based on their bylaws. Most fell on the side of common sense. And today, I still find it a great pleasure when on a walk I come upon someone's Little Free Library, set up near the public sidewalk. I always peruse the titles, even if I don't intend to borrow. It's always interesting. Behind the Spotlight with Alvin and the Chipmunks. In the U.S., I love their concept of a presidential library. After each presidency, a library is set up in a place that is special to that president. In there, among many things, is the public record of that presidency, a key part of history, a key part of democracy, a library. I wish we did that in Canada. I always pictured that the Donald Trump Presidential Library would be a Little Free Library. A birdhouse-like structure set on a pole somewhere near the entrance to Mar-a-Lago. What have we here? Behind the Spotlight with Alvin. Well, there have been 46 U.S. presidents. I think that when the number hits 100, they should just franchise the presidential libraries. That would be so American. Each one could include an Applebee's. Try the Obama burger, the Truman melt, and those FDR chicken bites with special Clinton sauce. Okay, now, if you take the Little Free Library idea and transfer it into a condo or apartment building, you have what I call my local private library. I have one in my building. It's cool. Downstairs, a party room, a common area, is also the building's library, run by a tenant who volunteers as librarian for the love of books. It is open to tenants all day, every day. Unlike a public library, you don't have to necessarily return a book if you love it. Books are donated by tenants. At one point, it got so massive, the library had to purge books to the secondhand store and set up some new rules. I mean, people were donating entire sets of encyclopedias, outdated business manuals, ancient periodicals. Not even sure what a periodical is, but it sounds like a kind of dinosaur. So the new donation rule, only novels, no paperbacks. Still, we have our own library. Over the years, I've come across at least another 6 of these. A room somewhere in an apartment building run by a tenant who loves books. In a recent Facebook conversation, I tried to find out if anyone else had these types of local private libraries in their building. Some did. Some others said no, but we do have an informal book exchange on a table in the laundry room. So that's a little free library with no wooden structure, just a table, an exchange of books. I ended up donating about 100 novels to my library. So long, John Irving. It's been swell. The rest of my collection donated to Value Village and Goodwill. Bless the volunteers who run the little free libraries and those bigger ones in apartment and condo buildings. You are helping to keep books and stories and knowledge alive. So what books did I save? Well, most all of my books about music and movies and television, a few novels, a couple of textbooks, including all of my philosophy textbooks from university. Kant's, give away Kant's. My favorite save is my paperback copy of The Catcher in the Rye from high school. Putting aside for a second the controversy surrounding J.D. Salinger, the book itself remains a classic. I read it for the first time in high school, and my kids read it when they were in high school. Mine is the classic red-colored version, although the book cover is long gone, and the shoddy paperback spine has been cracked and broken so many times, I use an elastic band to keep the book together. A red elastic band, of course. That one I will keep forever. It will go with me to the crematorium. The one and only book burning I will sanction. Let my ashes sit in an urn on the mantel, mixed with Holden Caulfield. Props to all the people who promote reading and books. Props to books. And yes, even props to people who use books as props.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37 @gmail.com.